Mendel Lerman is a young rabbi passionate about inspiring people to grow through the power of Jewish wisdom. He's part of a game-changing organization called Chabad, which has become a global movement impacting millions of people. What is Chabad's secret sauce that allows them to have such a huge impact? We'll discuss that question and more with Rabbi Mendel today on the Game Changers Forum. All right, I am sitting today with a person who is very special to me. Mendel Lerman is one of my rabbis at my local Chabad synagogue here in Atlanta. But Mendel is a whole lot more than a teacher and leader to me. Mendel is a dear friend. He's a study partner. We study together every Thursday. We're going to talk about that. He's also like a brother to me. So really grateful to have this time. And probably most importantly, Mendel is a fellow Atlanta Braves fan. So Mendel and I talk Braves baseball as much as we talk Jewish stuff. I don't know if that's good or if I should be advertising that, but I can actually have a real Braves conversation with you anytime. I love that, Mendel.
Ryan, I'm very happy to be here. And
yes.
I really appreciate the invite, being here with you. And every time I get to sit with you, I feel like I sit with a scholar.
Oh,
really?
Thanks.
Somebody who thinks, and just always great discussion. So I'm looking forward to what we got today.
We're going to have a good time.
Yeah.
We're going to have a good time. And I also am representing Chabad with my Chabad
I
of
saw
Gwinnett
that.
mug right here. I did that for Joseph on last week's podcast, so I definitely wanted to have
Very cool. Nice and
my
personal.
Chabad my Chabad mug here. Okay, so Mendel, we have a ton that we're going to cover today, and I'm really, really excited. I know a lot of people that are watching have heard of Chabad. Some of them have maybe even visited Chabad, and then some people maybe it's like Chabad, it's like Chabad, what is this?
Yeah.
So I think this is a really great opportunity to talk about this organization movement. We're going to talk more broadly about Jewish wisdom, but I want to start just with Chabad today. You are a Chabad rabbi, and a lot of people, as I said, they've heard of Chabad, but they may not know what it is. So let's just start with what in the world is Chabad? Yeah,
it's a very good question.
Yeah,
and I could spend hours trying to explain Chabad.
Yeah.
What Chabad is today is an organization which has centers throughout the world. We're close to 6,000 Chabad centers globally today.
6,000?
Yeah, 6,000 global centers. Chabad is a Jewish organization that plants itself in a city, a town, where there is a need for more Jewish engagement.
Mm-hmm.
There could be a temple, a synagogue, conservative, reform, but you always have people, the unaffiliated, or even Jews that already are members at different synagogues. They're looking for more. They're looking for something that connects with them on a soul level. And Chabad is a family of a husband and wife with their children. They will move out to a city or a country. My in-laws are Chabad of Thailand, Bangkok, Thailand. My wife
started it, right?
Yeah,
they
started Chabad in Thailand.
From nothing.
Yeah, we can talk
Amazing.
about that a bit later.
I want to talk about that a little bit, yeah.
And really, Chabad has no agenda. We don't come with like a game plan. Well, we're going to start a synagogue, a Hebrew school, and a summer camp, and a teen network. We really want to sort of feel out, what is this community looking for? Maybe they already have a strong school, but what they need more of is maybe a connection. Maybe they need a guide, a spiritual guide. Maybe they need somebody to take care of their children, youth, teens. So really, in my case, when I moved back here to Peachtree Corners in Gwinnett County in Georgia, we felt out what's here. Well, Peachtree Corners, we know there's a lot of young families moving in.
Yeah.
What else do we know? We know there's a lot of youth, teenagers, and there's young adults.
Yeah.
And they're not coming to synagogue. We don't see that they're engaged with their Judaism ever since they left Hebrew school. But but Judaism is not a religion. It's a way of life, and there's wisdom and there's depth and there's meaning. And so we step in and we create these spaces where Jews, in our case in Peachtree Corners, youth and young adults and young families, they can have a Jewish experience.
Yeah.
And our mission is not to make them Chabad.
Yeah.
At all.
That's huge.
We're not here to make you religious. The people that I engage with typically don't come to services. And I don't encourage them. I don't even mention them. We have Saturday services.
Yeah, you're not pushing that.
I'm not pushing that. I like to focus on what's good. What can you do, the positive? What could you do to engage you in a Jewish way that feels soulful and meaningful for you? And every Jew has a Jewish soul, and I believe in that. And one thing leads to the next. You can let that fire continue to grow, and they'll know when they want to move forward and grow a bit. So in a nutshell, Chabad is a force of husband and wives. It's really a team effort.
Yeah.
It's a unit that we want to promote just Jewish experiences for every age, for every demographic, and in any way that they want to experience it.
Yeah.
And not here to highlight what they aren't, but just to highlight that they're Jewish, and this Torah, this is yours as much as it's mine. So we give them opportunities just to celebrate their Judaism because it's rightfully theirs. So
yeah, that's great. I remember you told me one time, and I was shocked of the number of people that Chabad engages that don't ever come to services. But they're getting challah, the bread for Shabbat on Friday nights, or they're participating in a holiday program, or maybe you're bringing them hamantashen, which are the special cookies that we eat during the holiday of Purim.
Yeah.
All those little touch points.
Yeah.
And I know just in my own experience with Chabad, I've always appreciated that I haven't felt the pressure to conform to become a full throttle Chabad person. But what I do feel is encouragement just to take another step forward as a human, as a Jew, and just in being a force for good in this world.
Yeah.
And so, okay, I'm going to go out of commercial shook. I want to hear more of what you have to say. But yeah, I just, my own experience harmonizes with what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When it really jumps out at me, the power of Chabad. The power of Chabad is really the power of the Jewish people. Hanukkah, our holiday Hanukkah, we celebrate the victory of lights.
Yeah.
Which really it's not a Jewish value. It's really a universal message of light over darkness and good over evil. So we celebrate Hanukkah by lighting the menorah, which is a candelabra with 8 branches, and every night we light an additional candle. So Chabad started, and this was spearheaded by the Rebbe, who's the leader of the Chabad movement. So we can talk about him more. I would like to. Yeah,
for sure.
That to make public menorah lightings, which is to take this message of light over darkness and to put it into the streets. If that meant putting a menorah on your car, if that meant going to really public places like malls and town halls and making a giant menorah lighting, inviting the whole Jewish community. Today, I believe that millions of Jews participate in Hanukkah with Chabad around the globe today. I mean, just taking every Chabad around the world. How many people come to the Chabad here? We have people that just come for Chabad, just come for the Hanukkah. I'm sorry,
just come for the Hanukkah.
Just for the menorah lighting. Yeah, that's how they want to express their Jewishness.
Yeah.
They come for public menorah lighting, and then multiply that by 6,000, and then some places have hundreds or thousands of people. I'm talking about millions of Jews that are engaged in such a open, proud Jewish way. And thanks to there being a Chabad out there, and there's no agenda just other than just celebrate Judaism. So that's when I really feel like the impact and how much just the story of the Jewish people. Like we're everywhere, and everybody has a Jewish soul. Everybody has a little spark in them, and not everybody expressed in the same way. Yeah, but it's there, and we're just here to find ways that help them live to their true self.
Right. No, I love that. And I think also what's beautiful too is that it's engaging a lot of like take for the menorah lighting. But there's also a lot of non-Jews that get to, because these are public events that are open for everybody to come and see the lights and experience the warmth of these different holidays. There's an opportunity not just for Jews, but for everybody to experience the warmth and that spiritual connection. I think that's huge.
That is correct.
Real quick before we move on, just as far as the word Chabad, can you just give us a little bit of a definition? Like, what
I was
is
hoping
that?
you wouldn't open this can of worms.
Oh, it's open, baby. We've only just begun.
So you asked me what's Chabad. So I told you what Chabad is today.
Yeah.
What Chabad started as was a Hasidic group back in the town of Lubavitch, which is in Russia, former
Soviet Union.
Former Soviet Union. This is going back 200, 300 years, 250, 300 years ago. And Chabad began as a Hasidic group that endeavored to teach Judaism and to teach Jewish wisdom in a scholastic and a really educational format. Yeah. Which meant that Judaism is not just about the rituals and about do this and do this, but there is deep wisdom that you can study and you can debate and you can meditate on it. And the Chabad philosophy is that emotions come and go. But if you have something which is founded on a logical, something logical, then you can always meditate on that idea and then get inspired about that and develop a feeling of love or inspiration. So Judaism, which is a relationship with God, it's meant to be done with love and excitement, relationship with God. But sometimes we just become very mechanical and robotic in our rituals. So how do you do it with love? How do you do it with passion?
Yeah, with soul, with heart.
Feeling really into it.
Yeah.
So you need to learn about it. Why would you love something you don't know anything about? Why would you love God if you don't know anything about God? How could you come to enjoy something that you don't quite know what it's about? So Chabad is a philosophy, and there's books and books of wisdom of Rebbes who are Hasidic masters who would teach, taking from Kabbalah and taking from Talmud, just sort of taking from all parts of the Torah to present the student with a real piece of a piece of art, really, that you can study, you can analyze, and it clicks in your head like, oh my goodness, this is incredible. This makes sense. And now your Judaism has been uplifted. It's gone from, preschool, to really, really, really advanced level stuff. Yeah. So that's what Chabad is. Chabad is 3 Hebrew letters, which are Chet, Bet, and Daled.
So it's an acronym.
It's an acronym.
Okay.
Correct. It's an acronym. Chet, Bet, Daled, Chabad. And it stands for, the Chet is for Chachma, which means wisdom, Bina, which means understanding, and Dat, which means knowledge. Okay. And
wisdom, understanding, and knowledge.
Correct.
Okay.
So the Hasidic masters believe it's a 3-step process of how to, when you want to figure something out, you first have like a flash of insight. But you can't yet explain it. You can't yet figure it out. Somebody asks you, what did you just figure out? Give me a second. Yeah. So that first flash we'll call Chachma, and then it leads to Bina, where you start to, pulp it and really give it color and beginning and end. And then the last one, Dat, which is most important, is knowledge, is where knowledge means you know something. And the Bible talks about Adam knowing Eve.
The intimacy.
The intimacy.
Yeah.
So it's when a piece of knowledge means something to you.
Yeah.
So that's a little about Chabad. And that moved on to become what it is today. But
yeah. Oh my goodness. There's so many things we could drill into. Okay, I want to get into this idea that we talked about a couple minutes ago about Chabad being everywhere.
Yeah.
6,000. Yeah. 6,000 Chabad centers around the world. Even when Kara and I went on our honeymoon to Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, I remember we were sitting having a cup of coffee, and you were like, Ryan, there's a Chabad in Cabo. I said, no way. And of course, when we got there, we went there for a Friday evening Sabbath meal, and it was amazing. So Chabad is in Cabo, Mexico, and all these other places, Nepal, Kathmandu, all these places. So how did this happen, Mendel? How did Chabad become this worldwide movement where there's this feeling that Chabad is everywhere?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
That's the biggest mystery.
That's the thing. What's the secret sauce?
So you can't talk about Chabad without talking about the Rebbe.
Yeah.
So the Rebbe, which is what Hasidic students typically refer to as their rabbi, they call them endearingly
like
as
chief rabbi.
Yeah.
The chief rabbi.
Rebbe.
Yeah.
So Rebbe, our Rebbe, Rabbi Mendel Lerman, who I carry his name. My parents named me after the Rebbe.
You're Menachem Mendel Lerman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Menachem Mendel. And as you can figure, they were quite touched by his life. They named me after him. My parents moving to Georgia and to Gwinnett and becoming the Chabad emissaries here is directly because of the Rebbe sending them here. So,
and your dad grew up. Both your parents grew up in that area.
My dad grew up in Brooklyn. This is in Brooklyn, New York, and the Rebbe was my dad's rabbi.
Yeah.
So my father every Saturday morning and Friday night for Shabbos services would go to the Rebbe Shul, which is an iconic place today called
We're going to talk about it.
770. And there, together with thousands of other like Hasidic people like him, they hear the Rebbe really passionate about something. And the Rebbe felt that we are living in unprecedented times. Where in the Rebbe's words, he spoke in Yiddish, but I'll loosely translate. The Rebbe said that there's a fire burning, and this fire is burning in the Jewish people. It's an emergency, and because there's an emergency, we don't go by the regular protocols. Of you first have to do this, then when you pass
almost
this
like
level,
a wartime mentality, right?
Wartime mentality, and particularly when there's somebody trapped in a building, you need to just go and get them out. We don't ask questions. No one's asking you, do you have the right credentials to be a savior? If you see, then you need to do something about it. And so the Rebbe was passionately speaking to all of his followers that you're living a beautiful life in Crown Heights in Brooklyn, where you have the kosher pizza shop and you have your schools and you have everything you need in your bakery and your sushi, everything kosher.
Ebers.
You have the,
of course, the store. I love that place.
Yeah. But there's a fire burning, and we live in a post-Holocaust era. And there are Jews around the world who are totally unaffiliated, don't even know about their rich heritage. So get out there.
Yeah.
And in Yiddish, she said, "Kehre Welt heint," which means change the world today. Just get out there. And you can imagine, Ryan, you're talking about close to 6,000 couples, Chabad rabbis and their wives.
Yeah.
It's
an army.
Yeah. And there's no qualifying course that you need to go.
I think that's a big misconception.
There's no training.
Yeah.
It's, hey, if you know Aleph, then you could become a Chabad rabbi to teach Aleph.
Yeah.
So Chabad today is close to 6,000 rabbis. The Rebbe passed away in 1994.
Yeah.
Chabad has doubled since his passing.
It's amazing.
More than doubled. But the Rebbe basically inspired everybody from my dad's generation, a bit older and younger, just to go out. And there was no funding. There was no here's what you should do. Just go, figure it out. There's thousands of things you can do once you move to a particular city. Yeah. You don't have to become this fancy thing and logo and branding. There's no secrets. We take no courses. There's a bunch of us that are schnooks. What am I? I'm a Mendel. There are, I'm sure, people that are a lot more qualified than I am to go to a place and to start a Jewish organization, be really like an entrepreneur. But
But you got the fire.
It's the
You've got
fire.
the fire.
It's the fire. And the Rebbe believed in us more than we believed in ourselves. It's the Rebbe gave us a sense of mission and purpose, and that inspired people to take up places all over the globe. And
but here's something you said that's really important.
Yeah.
People aren't going with like, hey, here's a suitcase full of money or anything like they're funding or anything. You got to go. And that to me has always been something amazing about Chabad, to the degree that I understand how it works. You're talking about sometimes 22, 23 years old, 24, 25, 26.
Yeah.
And they're going to these places they've never been to. And they're burning the boat.
Yeah.
They're burning the boats. They're not coming. They're going there.
It's a one-way ticket.
It's a one-way ticket. They're making it happen without funding and, maybe not even certainly not knowing the language in many cases. I mean, I'm sure when your parents-in-law, they went to Bangkok, Thailand and started Chabad there when there was no Chabad.
Yeah.
It's amazing
tuna fish from
inspiration.
Brooklyn.
Cans of tuna fish. Right. So it's amazing.
Yeah, Ryan, I mean, this point cannot be stressed enough. Just really, I'm in awe really of my colleagues. There's a greater sense of mission than for success. And when we see there's a need for something, a program, expense is not even like on our it's not a vocabulary. It's like, if it needs to get done, what would the Rebbe say? There's a fire burning. You're going to ask questions if you could afford to get into your car the gas to go help this individual. It's not a question. You'll figure it out. Yeah. So now, of course, you need to have plans. And thank God today, there's a lot more help out there in terms of just strategy for us young shluchim, us Chabad rabbis, of how to make it work and how to figure it out. But really, it is a deep, deep sense. I mean, I was a 26-year-old kid, and I was inspired to do it. Yeah, largely because of my mom and dad. Sure. Which we could get into. Yeah. We'll get into that here in a minute. I think there's also just a great, general or broader lesson here that a lot of times, whatever your vision or your passion is, man, if you've got the fire. Sometimes it's you don't have to check all the boxes of you got to have a degree and you've got to have funding. And if you've got passion for something and a clear vision, it's amazing what you can do if you've got that sense of fire. Yeah, well said. Yeah. And I think that's important because, everybody's got their own calling and station and post, but with the fire, it's amazing how far you can go. Yeah. Okay, so I do want to talk a little bit about, you used a term a moment ago, shaliach or shluchim, and I want you to talk about what that means. So you have and this is part of your story. So you grew up here in Atlanta because your parents were sent here many years ago. So talk to us a little bit about what a Chabad shaliach is, and what it was like growing up in a family dedicated to that mission. Yeah. So the real credit goes to my mom and dad, who grew up in really comfortable Chabad communities. My mom is from Montreal, and her parents are very devout Chabad Hasidim followers of the Rebbe. My grandfather is a dean in the spiritual guide at a yeshiva at a university for Jewish students in Montreal. Yeah. Okay. And my dad grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and both of them, being inspired from the Rebbe, made the big move to leave with my two older sisters to come to Atlanta. And I grew up. So one of the things about Chabad is that we're not looking to move to a Jewish community, like where there's kosher food and all the Jewish boxes checked to live. Yeah. We'll go to the places where there is no Jewish infrastructure and build a Jewish infrastructure there. So I was homeschooled because there was no Jewish school to the likings of my mom and dad at the time growing up. So my mom and dad homeschooled us until
Wow.
all my siblings were 7. I'm one of 7.
Yeah.
So we were homeschooled by my mother until we were old enough to leave home and travel abroad, travel to New York or Montreal to study there at Chabad schools. So growing up as a kid, you see my father and mother so dedicated to every Jew in Gwinnett County. And what I learned from them was it was really never about the numbers and about growing this big organization and becoming something. It was always just about care and acceptance for every Jew. There's an Orthodox author and speaker. His name is David Nisanoff, and he was once visiting a Chabad in I think it was in Chicago, a campus university, and he came to speak there. And Friday night he spoke with the students, and the next day, Saturday afternoon, he told the rabbi and rebbitzin, you could go to bed, like go rest. I'll hang out with your kids. And so he went on a walk on campus with the children, and they were ranging from 4 or 5-year-olds to teenagers, and they were walking by, I guess, the library or something, and they saw a few of the Jewish students who the night before were at the Shabbat table and making Kiddush and having Jewish experience, and now they're here on their laptops and they're writing and they're back at school, which for Orthodox Judaism, for a Jew, on Shabbat, we don't do work. We don't go on a laptop. Yeah. So the young girl turns to David Nisanoff and she just says, he doesn't know that it's muktzah, but don't worry, he'll learn soon. What she was basically telling him is he's an Orthodox Jew. Maybe you're not maybe you don't know that there's Jews out there who don't yet follow all the Jewish customs and laws, but don't judge him. He doesn't know. And don't worry, he'll learn soon. And really, I feel like this story resonated with me very much. And it's the story of Chabad and the story of their children, which is anybody who comes through their doors and seeing with my mother and father, there was no judging of where a person was holding. And when the person left, there's no like talking behind their back, like, oh, that person is doing A, B, and C. And because frankly, we're the only Orthodox people in Gwinnett County. Nobody else who comes through Chabad's doors have the same standards as Orthodox Jews that we follow. Yeah. So I could have easily heard from my mother and father, like as soon as everyone's out of our doors, speaking bad about them or speaking ill about them, but there was none of that. It was it was so foreign to me. Just a love of every single Jew is what I learned from them. Yeah. And that directly inspired me to live that same lifestyle when I get older. So I grew up homeschooled. When I was in 7th grade, I left home. I left Atlanta.
In 7th grade?
Yeah. When I was 12 years old. And I went to Montreal. Lived with my grandparents for 5 years. Chicago, Australia, Israel, South Africa. Those were more of my stops when I was studying in yeshiva and Jewish college. So ever since then, I never really had a bed at home. Once you're out, you're out. You come home for the holidays. Yeah. So that's really a very typical upbringing of a Chabad, of a child of a Chabad rabbi and rebbitzin, where they usually will go away from home quite young, just to get the education that they need to live the lifestyle of their parents. So
now, so you're one of 7, and I know some of a couple of your siblings, the males are like you. They're shaliachim, but not all of them. So it's like, talk just a little bit more about that word. Shaliach, like what does that word even mean? And like that, when somebody says, okay, he's a shaliach, like technically, does that mean he's a rabbi? Does it mean what does that mean?
Yeah. So another word that of a Chabad rabbi and rebbitzin are shlichim, or that's the plural. Yeah. The singular is shaliach. What that basically means is an agent. Okay. An emissary. Emissary. So we are all emissaries representing someone. We were sent by someone. In this case, it's the Rebbe. So the Rebbe would call us, and we were just called the Rebbe's army of shlichim, of emissaries. So when you say this person is a shaliach, you mean that he's a Chabad rabbi or rebbitzin. You talked about some of my siblings not being shlichim. That is 100% true. I have some of my siblings that are
Yeah.
Chabad
Yeah.
in faith and in value and in behavior, but they don't run a community. They have a career, they're a business. They are a rabbi, which means they've got ordained as a rabbi. But they're a rabbi of their own home.
Yeah.
So, but their career path is not the same as mine.
Yeah. No, I think that's and I've met, I think, all of your siblings, and they're all just have that same spirit. I think your parents did just a beautiful job of instilling the values in all of the Lerman kids, of just this, this attitude of, hey, we live according to a very high standard, but we also want to just meet people. We're not any better. Like, you just don't get that attitude of it's just wanting to encourage everyone on their journey.
Exactly.
And I love that and appreciate that a lot. So, okay. Now, Mendel, because Chabad has such a, let's just say, a high public profile, and it's in so many places, it's inevitable and natural that there's going to be misunderstandings. People are going to, characterize or mischaracterize or generalize, Chabad in certain ways that maybe aren't so positive. What would you say is a common misconception that the public may have about Chabad that you would say, hey, I'd love to see people see things a little different about Chabad?
There's the life of a shaliach, which can never really be understood. It can never really be understood. So there's for sure a lot of misunderstandings and misconceptions about how the organization runs, how things happen. Really, it's a mom and pop shop for many of us.
Yeah.
Where everything that you see, whether it's the graphics, whether it's the setup, whether it's the cooking, whether it's a Torah class, everything is being done, with on the sofa locally, not just locally, but it's my wife and I sitting on a couch and saying, hey, how are we going to do this? It's the night before, and let's figure this out, and we pull it off. So I would say that's number one, which is a misunderstanding of how each Chabad center around the world is totally run and has the character of their Chabad rabbi and rebbitzin completely.
It's amazing.
You'll get a different taste, a different flavor.
That's a huge miss. I think a lot of people think that there's this very centralized thing, pipeline coming out of Brooklyn that's, funding and directing.
There's no board.
Okay.
There's no executive board.
That's like mandating, hey, you got to do this in Atlanta or Peachtree Corners. Nothing.
No, there's no. So the Rebbe did institute a system where every state should have a head shaliach. Okay. In our case, it's Rabbi Yossi and
like Chabad of Georgia.
Chabad of Georgia.
Yeah.
And there is the central office, which is the Merkaz Linyanei Chinuch, which is the central office in New York, that they also help young shluchim, young couples that want to move out and become Chabad centers around the world. They will help them with placement and help them, establish themselves geographically. But really, really, every Chabad house, it's called a house, Chabad house. Yeah, it's not a shul. Yeah, every Chabad house, it's much more than a shul. It's a Jewish home. It's really it's a center of just Jewish life. Yeah. So every Chabad house is custom tailored to what their rabbi and rebbitzin are into. If they're into art, if they're into music, then you'll have like a musical Shabbat. Hey, I went to Chabad in Colorado and they had this beautiful service with guitars or whatever. Who knows what? We should do that here. We do it a little different here. Yeah, every place is different.
It's like when Kara and I went to the Chabad in Cabo.
Yeah.
I mean, you felt like you were in Mexico, but it was very Jewish.
Yeah.
It had the Chabad vibe and values.
Yeah.
But the architecture, they're speaking Spanish.
Yeah.
They're speaking Hebrew. They're speaking English. I mean, you felt like you were in Mexico. And that was amazing.
Yeah. So really this is, and it's also important for me to hear myself saying this, because really every Chabad house should focus just on what do their people need, and not even look at other Chabads in the next city over and what they're doing and what they're successful at and what we should be doing perhaps here. They got just a different place, and we have our place. So
it's very contextualized, based on location. And I think this is really cool. It's very contextualized based on the unique abilities of the Chabad couple.
Yeah.
The married couple.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
And that's huge.
Which is why I keep hearing from people in Atlanta, well, they'll say, wow, when I met your mom and dad, like I've never met somebody like your mom and dad. Now they've been to many Chabads, but they'll find something that they were touched here by something special that my parents impressed upon them, which was unique to them. It's not a Chabad experience. It was because directly impacted by my mother and father.
Yeah. Okay. So Mendel, it's almost impossible for us to talk about Chabad without discussing 3 numbers. 770. 770, baby. All right. So 770 refers, it's an address. It refers to the Chabad headquarters at 770 Eastern Parkway in the Crown Heights section of Brooklyn.
Yeah.
I've been to 770 I think probably half a dozen times. The first couple of times I went there, I've known your dad for years. And I would like FaceTime him or something. Guess where I'm at? And he'd be like, what? He'd love that. But anyway, and I want to have your dad on the podcast at some point too, because your dad is one in a galaxy.
Yep.
I just love your dad.
He's a game changer.
He's a game changer. He's a total game changer. Okay. But I want to talk, so I've been there, but now my favorite visit to Chabad, no question, was when I went with you and your dad about a year ago.
Yeah.
We went right before the high holidays last year. Of course, it was a larger group from Georgia, and it was just a wonderful experience. But for you, as a lifetime, member of the Chabad, why is 770 such a special place?
It is truly a remarkable place.
Yeah. And I feel it's special, like just being there, but I didn't grow up with Chabad. It's a little different for me.
Yeah.
But for you. Yeah.
So 770 is a synagogue, and it got its name of its address, literally 770 Eastern Parkway became known as 770. This is Chabad headquarters. And when you hear about Chabad headquarters and you want to make a visit, you'll probably expect to see something really grand. Chabad today is a household name.
Yeah.
And you're going to its headquarters, you're expecting just something breathtaking, something marvelous. We're talking about like the painting or the architecture. You're thinking just be blown away, because there's some really nice Chabad centers around the world. And when you come there, you're almost shocked, because what you'll see is benches, broken.
There's nothing fancy about it.
Nothing fancy about it. It's a synagogue, and you step inside. It also serves as a house of study. It's a yeshiva where students are studying there. You walk inside, it's noisy.
Oh yeah.
And you hear hundreds and hundreds of people studying and arguing, and there's different prayers happening at different corners of 770. This is really the cradle of what makes a Chabad shaliach.
Oh yeah. It's the epicenter.
This is the boiler room that energizes the entire world.
Yeah.
The Jewish world. It's not pretty, like a boiler room in your home. It's not pretty. It's full of dust. It's not meant to be pretty, but this pumps energy to the whole world. The 770 was the Rebbe shul. So this is where people like my father grew up with the Rebbe, and where hundreds and thousands of others flew in from all over the world to meet the Rebbe and to hear from him. Yeah. It was all happening in 770. So the
and like dignitaries, like presidents and stuff would come to 770.
Correct. Yeah. Correct.
Yeah.
And
senators, you know. Yeah.
So all this is happening in this place. And there would hold public farbrengens, Hasidic gatherings, where there was song and dance and words of inspiration. And so the walls, where the Rebbe's cry for go and change the world, that happened in 770. All of this, all of the mind shift of inspiring a generation to care for each other, care for your fellow Jew, all that happened in 770. So when you think about Chabad Shluchim all over the world, where they were injected with the bug, where even after we're 30 years since the Rebbe passed, and yet Chabad is still on fire and growing and inspiring people like myself who never met the Rebbe, yet who inspired me is really the Rebbe who inspired me to be what I am today. You get it from the walls of 770. You watch videos and you listen to the Rebbe's talks, and this all happened in 770. And you hear the stories from your parents and grandparents. And so 770 is you need Jews and non-Jews can visit 770. Yeah. Everybody's welcome to visit 770.
No, you just walk in.
You walk in.
Like my first time, I was there for, I don't even remember why I was there. I was like, I got to check this out because I knew your dad, and I was familiar with Chabad here in the area, and I was like, I'm going to check it out. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. It was like, am I in the right place? Like when I first got there,
was there no secretary that
there was just, well, I was like, it's not some big grand obvious, situation. But then when you go down into the boiler room, where all the craziness is happening, but it's like this controlled, beautiful chaos. And that was just a very good description.
Did you get a coffee at Chocolate across the road? You know that coffee shop there?
Oh, of course.
Okay, yeah. If you're gonna go to 770.
I went over there.
Make sure you stop off at Chocolate, which is
right on the corner. Yep. Oh yeah, it's great. There's a lot of good little places.
Yeah, kosher bagel, kosher donut.
Kosher liquor store, Ebers. Yeah, so absolutely. Okay, so Mendel, want to pivot a little bit and talk about a really special book. I got it right here.
Yeah.
You and I have been studying, and I've done a lot of posts on this book and little reels. It's called People of the Word, 50 Words That Shaped Jewish Thinking by Mendel Lerman and Zalman Abraham. So we've been reading one chapter of this book together pretty much every week for the last year plus. Mm-hmm. We're about 3/4 of the way through it. I got my little bookmark here, and every week, I'm challenged by some kind of wisdom from the Torah, from Jewish tradition. I love this book. We talk about it all the time. I share with people about it. Give us I want to share. I'm going to share a few more thoughts about the book in just a minute, but just give us your take on the value of this book, The People of the Word, and why it's just such a unique book.
Yeah. I mean, the book, the subtitle is 50 Words That Shaped Jewish Thinking. And what the author, Mendel, not myself, but Mendel Lerman and Zalman Abraham, their premise is the Jewish language is not only perhaps, we're talking about ancient Hebrew, it's not just the oldest language, which biblically it's the language that Adam and Eve spoke and that Abraham spoke. And it wasn't until the Tower of Babel that new languages were introduced, but it was also the language that God used to create the universe. Beginning of Genesis, it says that God said, let there be light, let there be or, which is Hebrew for light, and there was light. Wow. So you're talking about a language that is what gives the character of the world. It is what shaped the world. So let us dig into this language a bit more. And what he does brilliantly is he takes every chapter is a new word in Hebrew. Yeah. And
very digestible chapters, like 3 or 4 pages, right?
Yeah. And with a great story at the end. So he'll take happiness and he'll say, what's the Hebrew word for happiness? Simcha. Those letters. Why? What do those letters mean? What are some other things that simcha, shemacha, machshava, similar letters? And you get a whole new perspective, perhaps an ancient perspective, the Torah perspective. And what you discover, which is what you and I discover from this book, is Torah is not just a history book.
Yeah.
It's not just stories, fairy tales of, Exodus and 10 plagues and leaving Egypt and, these fairy tale stories, but Torah has deep wisdom, practical wisdom that every Jew can study and implement in his day-to-day life. Not questions that are revolving around his religiosity, but questions that come up in marriage and relationships and in education and school and anti-Semitism. The wisdom and the key for a successful life, it's all in the Torah with the Torah's wisdom. And so brilliantly, just bite-sized chapters of Torah wisdom, Torah knowledge, which will blow you away every time.
Yeah. It lends itself really well to individual study, group study.
Yeah.
I would say for anybody, certainly for Jewish people that want to learn more about Judaism, Torah, wisdom, but even for anyone, Jewish or not Jewish, that just wants to learn more about Jewish wisdom.
Yeah.
Biblical wisdom. This book is excellent. I wish it sounds like we're like, we get a cut, of this, but we don't.
We don't.
I wish we did because we love it.
That's
so
how passionate we are.
But we're
100%.
passionate about this book because the impact it's had, I know on me, on you.
Absolutely.
I want to share just a little excerpt.
I just want to say before you get about Ryan, whenever we're studying, Ryan's got his pen.
Oh yeah, it's all you can see. I got it all
and his
marked
little
up there.
like a coloring book. Ryan's got things underlined and circled. He's always underpinning things, and I see him coloring.
I'm into
the whole chapter.
I love it. And we don't. The nice thing about this book too is like we don't prepare ahead of time. We just come together 30 minutes every Thursday from 12 to 12:30, like our lunch break.
FaceTime.
And we FaceTime it and we read it and we talk it.
Yeah.
Talk about but the one of the chapters I think that was like epic for us.
Okay, what was your epic? Which one are you talking about?
Guess which one I'm going to talk about. You know it. You know which one I'm going to do. Come on.
There's so many home runs.
Our word for it was like the word.
Oh,
you got it. You got it. Come on.
Of course. Hatzlacha.
Hatzlacha. Okay. Hatzlacha, which means success.
Yeah.
And we talked about that. We're still talking about it, but it was it's the Hebrew word for success. But it was so touching. And I mean, it was worth the whole study just to do that one. But I just want to read this one paragraph where it says, if we have given our all, if we have exceeded our past attempts, if we have put our whole self into achieving our purpose, whatever that may be, then we can and should consider ourselves a success. That's the idea behind the Hebrew word and this Jewish concept of hatzlacha, success. And then this was also the chapter. Literally, your dad and I were talking about this yesterday, where it told the story of Rabbi Zusha.
Oh,
tell us this. You got to do it. You got to tell us just real quick the story, and then we'll move on.
Okay.
But I know this wasn't. I didn't have this in the script, but
so
come on.
Zusha was a rabbi of his own right, a righteous Hasidic Rebbe. Zusha, he lived in a town called Anipoli. And the giant that he was, at his deathbed, his students observed that he seemed very troubled, very down. And they said, Zusha, what's the matter? And Rabbi Zusha said that, he's worried what's going to be when he comes upstairs. What's he going to say?
Yeah.
They said, Zusha, what are you
worried about? Yeah.
You're kidding? Like, we're worried, but you've led a life of righteousness and selflessness and kindness. What are you worried about? And Zusha said, when I'm going to come upstairs, I'm not worried that they're going to ask me, why weren't you wise like Solomon? Or why weren't you strong like Samson? Because I'm not Solomon and I'm not Samson. What I'm worried about is when they're going to ask me, Zusha, why weren't you Zusha? And what am I going to respond?
Yeah. Why weren't you more fulfilling the purpose that I gave to you from
your
God?
own shoes?
Your own shoes. Because that's true, hatzlacha,
yes.
Right? Is that you fulfill the purpose. Not to be Samson, not to be Abraham, not to be the Rebbe, not to be whoever, to be Mendel, to be Ryan. That's the epitome of hatzlacha, success, right?
Absolutely.
I love that story, man. It literally came up yesterday with your dad. So anyway, okay, but we need to move on. Again, check this book out. You can get it on Amazon or wherever books are sold. I know I'm really sounding like a commercial, but we love this book. Check it out.
Yeah.
Okay. So Mendel, I want to kind of turn to the final stretch here today for this conversation and talk about some things that are really happening on the ground in the world right now. There's a lot of tension. We know that there's global tension, there's political tension, there's Israel tension. There's just so much on a large scale. And then of course, everybody's got their own personal and private tensions that they're facing. So for you as a rabbi, as a Jewish rabbi, this 3,000-year-old scroll that we call the Torah, we read it weekly as the go-to source for wisdom, but how can such an old document, how can it help us today with our real on-the-ground problems?
I don't know how it does it, but it does. The wisdom of the Torah is timeless because it's not a construct of a human being, but this is the wisdom of the creator of the universe. And so God, not just the creator of the universe, but the architect and the director today, the director of every step that's happening in the world. God didn't just create the world and step aside and now it's running on autopilot. Hashem is intimately involved. When I say Hashem, means God.
Yeah.
He's intimately involved in every happening in the world on a global level and on a personal level. And he gave us this manual. He didn't just put us in this world where we have to be clueless. When you buy a new gadget, it comes with instructions manual, how to use it. That's what you expect when you purchase a new item. Hashem gave us a guide. He gave us a manual. He says, you're not lost. You don't need to feel like you're in the dark. You're living in a world where you're going to be faced with a lot of confusion, a lot of doubt, fear, but there is a guide. There's a torch that you can hold, you can look into, and that's the Torah. And it's amazing how the Torah is timeless with its messages and its relevance into daily occurrences that are happening on a global level, but also in your personal life. So the Torah, that's really what it is. It's an instructions manual, not more than just a history book and a story about our history. It's an instructions manual for every Jew, no matter of their level of observance. It's an instructions manual of how a Jew can live his or her best life. Yeah. There's a lot of fear.
I think we see that with this book. Like this book is essentially just taking Torah concepts and words
100%.
and applying
this is Torah. Absolutely.
For today. Yeah. And every week we walk aware like, okay, I feel like I can do life better.
Yeah.
By walking that out.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's awesome. I'm sorry. Were you going to say something else? Or
I would like to say that there is a lot of fear that's happening in the world today. And I've even seen, organizations, Jewish organizations that send out emails and, like the header is like, there's never been a tougher time to be a Jew, or being a Jewish teen today is the hardest it's ever been. And I want to push back on that. And I want to say that there's never been a greater time for a Jew to live than today's world. I deal a lot with youth and with young individuals, young folks. And there's never been a greater time in our history for a Jewish teenager, for a Jewish young adult, and for anybody for that matter. There are endless amount of opportunities, and through social media, through YouTube, through C-Teen and other teen networks that are, no matter what community or no shul, no synagogue that you're members of, every Jew today can find a Chabad or find a welcoming Jewish community where they can engage in their Jewishness. We've been attacked, and there is anti-Semitism out there, but we have the tools more than ever to fight back. And we know the way we fight back is by being more Jewish, openly and expressively. So I look at these teens, I deal with like,
yeah, you're on the front lines.
I'm on the front lines.
Locally and nationally, right? Because you're doing stuff helping to provide encouragement to Chabad teens on a national level too. Yeah.
So, I mean, these teens, every Monday we're getting together. We're having awesome Jewish time where teens could get together. They go to public schools. There's not a lot of Jews in their schools, but they could come together with other Jews in a safe, fun environment. And there's trips and there's opportunities and like it used to be if you didn't grow up in a Jewish community or you didn't know, how would you find out?
Right.
Where'd you go? Who do you ask? Today, you can go online and you can find anything you want to know about Judaism on YouTube and on social media and through Chabad centers around the world. It is unbelievable how fun and accessible Judaism is today for every Jew around the world. And we are going through tough times, but today more than ever, we have the tools to come together and to combat it. So I'm very hopeful. I'm full of hope for Jewish people today and for their teens today and for the young adults today. I'm full of hope for the future of Judaism.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. And I mean, I know it is. It's a hard time to be a Jewish college student, public schools, but I appreciate what you're doing just to say, hey, you're not alone.
Yeah.
You're not alone. And the way we're going to overcome darkness is by shining light. And I know that's a big message of Chabad and your message. Yeah. And that's going to win the day one way or another.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mendel, okay, the last thing that I like to ask guests here on the Game Changers Forum is this. Share with us a game-changing idea that can help us to grow in being a force for good in this world. I know you got something.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to take it from this book, actually.
Yeah.
One of the chapters there that presented me with a game-changing idea, which is there are some things which are too important to wait on your feelings. There are some things which are too important to wait until you're in the mood of it. There are certain things, values, beliefs that we need to act upon, whether we're in the mood, whether we fully believe it, whether we're feeling it that day. Today we live in a society where like the mantra is do what you feel.
Yeah.
Don't do something that doesn't feel right.
That's everywhere.
Now, for Judaism, of course, we believe that Judaism should be done with passion and shouldn't be done mechanically and like a robot. But there is something very true about just the Nike slogan, which is, I think, Judaism, just do it. You cannot wait. You're an author. Anybody in the creative field will tell you, and you talk about this a lot on your social media platforms as well, which is you need to have just consistent times where you plug into your craft, even if you're not in the mood.
Show up, right?
Show up. Yeah. Exactly. Because if you might wait years for you to get in the mood. But if you just put that pen to the paper or take out that guitar, you're giving a space for the creative spirit to ignite. And the same is true with our Judaism, which is a lot of times we tell teenagers or we tell our children or we tell ourselves like, I'll do that when I'm in the mood. I don't feel ready for that yet.
Yeah.
There are certain things which are too important to wait. You might wait for a long, long time. Yeah. And frankly, maybe the inspiration and the mood is waiting for a trigger and needs an igniter. And that might just do it. So anything which you feel that one day, and I would like to see myself doing A, B, and C. Why one day?
Yeah.
Do it right now.
Take a step.
Just do it.
I love that. I love that. It's so powerful. And you mentioned I'm a writer, and sometimes you got to write, just start writing to figure out what you want to write about.
Well said.
And sometimes,
Exactly.
and so I think that ties in.
Exactly.
That's just one of a gazillion examples of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Just do it. Don't wait. Take action.
Take action. And particularly, to your Jewish audience, I want to encourage also the Jewish audience. And when it comes to the mitzvahs, of course, this is for a global message, but anybody that you feel is the right thing to do, that you want of yourself, don't wait for the inspiration to go and do it. But for Jews, we have beautiful rituals, which are full of meaning. Like tefillin and Shabbat candles and Shabbat and a Shabbat dinner and the Kiddush. And one way is like, well, let me first study about it. Let me first find out more about it. Just do it. Just start.
Love it.
Because the meaning, we have 5,000 years of backing, of history, of how this has been accompanying us. And look, we're still around. It's obviously done well for us. So just plug in. Just do it. And you'll have an opportunity to learn about it afterwards, but just plug yourself in.
That'll change the game.
Yeah.
Man. Mendel, I want to just thank you. I want to thank you for being on the show. I want to thank you for all that you and your family means to me personally and to Kara. Just very, very grateful for just the force for good that you are in this world. So really appreciate you a lot. So tell us also, just if people want to learn more about Chabad, or maybe about what you're doing, what's some good contact info?
So get the book.
Get the book. Definitely get the book. That's our call to action. Get the book.
Yeah. You want to know more about Chabad? You can always, Chabad's website is chabad.org, and there's great Jewish content, video content, writing articles. If you want to see more about what I do, you can see on all social media platforms, Mendel Lerman, Facebook and Instagram. Awesome. All right. Thanks for joining us for the Game Changers Forum. Thanks for listening to today's show. Hey, let me know what you think in the comments section. And you can take your interest to the next level by heading over to ryanlambertforum.com and signing up for the Game Changers email, which is a short and sweet email I send every 2 weeks that includes brief game-changing ideas. And if you've benefited from this talk, please take a moment and share this episode with someone else who would find it helpful. Then don't forget to subscribe. And if you're on YouTube, do me a favor and click that like button and the notification bell so that you'll know when the next episode drops. Hey, we'll be back soon with more game-changing ideas for a life well lived.